morning, good evening, good afternoon. As I told you in the earlier session about digital transformation, those are the three most dear words for opening for me because they give me sense that the event is attended by people from different countries and different time zones. It gives me sense how global we become, and it gives me sense that these sessions are so interested for you participants because you are the one who really inspire me and motivate me to continue these sessions. My name is Lela Machaidze. I am professional project manager and I'm in this field for more than 17 years. I've been working with the clients in the private and public sectors, working about leadership, project portfolio, program management, change management, and leadership. If you want to learn more about the tips and tricks I have for you in these fields, please follow me on LinkedIn or other social medias. Couple of words about today's logistics. The session will take 1 hour. The first 40 minutes will be presentation, followed by the Q&A questions from myself and of course from the audience. Please feel free to post your questions in the chat. We will be addressing them later after the presentation. The session will be recorded and posted on my YouTube channel, so you have a chance to look at it once again or share with your colleagues or friends. We continue session about digital transformation because one of the important careers that I started with the Bechtel. Bechtel was specialized in the construction area. Since then, I've been in this field more than 14 years now. This is my pleasure to co-host today's session with the person who has practical experience to be involved and leading transformation, to be involved in digital transformation specifically, and being on the leadership roles for implementing machine learning, IoT, and data analysis, specifically in construction field. This is my pleasure to present. Good evening, Azeneth.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, Lela. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
This is a pleasure to have you, and I'm really pleased that you had a chance to join us, and I will give you a right to present, and the floor is yours. So Azeneth prepared special presentation for our session, so she shares her knowledge and practice in this field.
Thank you, Lela. So I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see it, and it's beautiful view.
Thank you. Well, it's a pleasure for me to be here. As Lela mentioned, I'm passionate about the technology aspects and the transformation that is ongoing in the construction industry. I myself have been working in the industry for more than 20 years. Working mainly on transformation projects that are related to enabling technology to streamline processes, make our lives easier, make the lives of our customers and our workforce easier, and essentially bring more efficiencies to our processes and mainly to the industry. The construction industry, I mean, it's one of the oldest industries, and I hope you recognize, for our people in our colleagues in Georgia, you recognize this photo. The construction industry, as we know, is one of the oldest. And call me a romantic, I like to refer to the construction industry as almost to the defining of our civilizations. I mean, it's an industry that has been present for more than 3,000 years. And when we go to a different country, to a different place, and we see some of the magnificent historical items, we can actually see how the pyramids define Egypt, for example, how the Mayan constructions have defined Mexico and Guatemala, and so on. I think the construction and the iconic examples of the construction throughout history have almost shaped us into who we are and have actually defined the civilizations throughout time. So some facts about the construction industry. The construction industry, as I mentioned, is the oldest and one of the largest industries that there is. It actually has been growing for many, many years, as I mentioned, and right now it's actually accounting for about 10 trillion US dollars. And in fact, some experts are saying that it's even more than 10 trillion, and it's expected to reach about 16.6 trillion by 2025. It's a market that keeps growing, and we have seen significant growth even more post-pandemic, because I think throughout the pandemic, the construction didn't stop, although actually some construction sites were actually suspended or closed, and some customers or some access to sites were more limited. The construction actually has not stopped, and in fact, we have seen even more growth post-pandemic phases, globally speaking. The construction is definitely a leading industry in all our market economies. It's in fact, I mean, one of the healthy indicators on our economies. I mean, when an economy actually gets measured, is usually followed by the construction industry KPIs. And it actually employs a large number of people. About 7% of our global workforce is employed by somehow involved in the construction industry, equivalent to 273 million people. And it accounts currently about 10% of the global GDP, and globally speaking, which accounts also 6 to 9% of our GDP in developed economies. So I don't know, Lela, if we do the questions right now, because I see a hand, or if we
we will collect the questions. Thank you for the questions. We will let you present, because some of the questions may be answered during the presentation. We will collect the questions and then we will address them at the end. I hope this is acceptable for everybody.
Okay, just wanted to make sure, but thank you for the questions, and please write them in the chat, as Lela mentioned. The construction industry actually employs, as I was mentioning, a large number of people, but it also comprises a very large number of small, medium, and larger firms. So, and this is because of this that the industry, I can tell that is not yet very well integrated. So these small firms could actually work in an independent manner. And even within these small firms, their assets, so their platforms, we will see that are actually more or less still working in an isolated manner. So there are still very challenges and many opportunities that transforming the construction industry to make it more integrated, globally speaking. So if we define the construction industry, it's actually a vast and a wide, it covers a wide range of sectors. Starting with building construction, that could be also in houses and buildings, I mean, which basically is just adding structure to real property. To industrial construction, which could be actually defined, or as an example, a large building or a group of buildings, a park, for example, that where we actually integrate the expertise in planning. We actually need to get more specific and more detailed on cost estimate, design, and the overall construction. Then we have the infrastructure construction, which actually requires now what we call the heavy engineering or civil engineering for large public works, railways works, wastewater, utility distributions, and so on. And lastly, and very important, the building material sector. Actually, I'm coming from the building material sector, which is quite important and quite relevant because it supplies the materials for this construction or for these sectors, which of course need to now be sustainable, need to be reliable, need to have the quality that is required for these sectors to grow and to be sustainable. And I'm going to now go into the heart of what it is, the digital transformation of the construction industry. And I like to also call it the revolution of the construction industry. As we know it, the construction industry has actually stacked or has been behind other industries in terms of transformation and in terms of automation, innovation, digitalization, you name it, up to the last decade. And compared to other industries, actually other industries have moved on a lot faster in the last 20 to 30 years. And it's funny, I'm gonna just throw here a provocative photo and a provocative comment. Many of you are in LinkedIn, and I think a few days ago, at least I got it in my feed, there was a post that was going viral with this photo. And I actually decided to integrate it here because I don't know the ages that we have here in the audience, but I'm positive that some of you, depending on what year you were born, might not even seen one of these or might not even know what this is. I actually have a 13-year-old daughter, and as a joke, I also asked her, do you know what this is? And she didn't know. I mean, she never has seen one of these equipment, and she actually thought it was a bomb. So that tells us how fast some of the industries have moved, in which some of the elements or products that were at some point recently, actually, because this is about what? How many years ago? Maybe 10, 15 years ago, that were successful, are not even recognizable by the newer generations anymore. But if I ask you what this is, you very well know what this is. This has been here with us for ages, for many, many years. And even our newer generations will know what this is and what this is used for. And I mean, I'm just being provocative. Obviously, this is not a reflection of all the construction, but it just gives us a signal that the construction industry, in a way, has been very loyal to the very traditional ways of operating, the way we build, until recently, and I'm talking about the last 10 years, the last decade, in which the new technologies and the new digital era actually has brought many bold ideas and many bold solutions that are revolutionizing the construction industry. And I'm going to start with this photo. Actually, this photo includes is from Deloitte, and it's a public photo. They actually mapped the information ecosystem of the construction industry with the different elements that are involved in construction and the different solutions that are right now transforming the processes and the way we conduct the processes in construction. So there are actually some, as they said, bold moves in the construction area, and they basically grouped this by groups of solutions, which we are going to be exploring here in the next slides. On one side, we have digital twins, with some virtual learning, drone-enabled technology, laser scanning that are actually now, even in some countries, has been required or will be required as a requirement, will be actually a requirement for construction projects. We have, and I'm going from top right to left, we have robotics, automation, and 3D printing, which also have been integrated into have been developing and integrated into construction, and are actually giving us very good insights on what the future of construction will be. We have actually machine learning or artificial intelligence and analytics with a number of projects within all the sectors of construction that actually can make our lives safer, better, or products more sustainable, or businesses more profitable by the use of information and the analytical or analysis of information. And then we have here on the left the digitization of processes on the supply chain, which is allowing us to optimize the way we present and the way we actually market and present our products, the way we commercialize our products, and also the way we actually produce and deliver our products. So those are just the main components or the main, obviously there are many more, and we're going to be talking a bit about these components or these technologies in BIM, which I believe is also very important, a very important addition on in future on construction projects as well. So we're going to start with artificial intelligence and analytics. Just 1 second, please. And the artificial intelligence and analytics actually allows, as I mentioned, to understand or to better understand the data. As we digitize, we actually have more data and we have more predictive analytics or way to actually foresee and understand the reality of the business, but also actually predict potential scenarios and simulations to make better, to have better decision making. Machine learning is actually a way or a channel for to achieve artificial intelligence. Machine learning is basically sensors or a way to integrate the data from all the equipment that we actually have, either in a building materials source or in a project or a construction site, and explore and understand basically what the equipment is telling us. I mean, I think I'm being just very simplistic on the definition, but it allows us to integrate the information and basically integrate and automate the duties that from the equipment, so that we actually allow our workforce to dedicate themselves and conduct other tasks that are not as repetitive, but also through machine learning, we understand the information to make the better decision making. So in terms of the information through machine learning, basically we can improve the quality of designs, because again, I mean, through the data set of analytics and information, and through machine learning and these algorithms and definitions, they can actually tell us and signal potential errors since the design phase based on learning from previous sets of data or results. So through machine learning, we definitely can create safer job sites for our people by integrating ways to ensure that our people or our employees or workforce actually, for example, prevent that they go to danger zones, for example, or if there is a healthy equipment that is missing, actually through machine learning, we can integrate some preventative measurements to make our job sites safer for our customers, for our employees. And therefore, actually through machine learning, we can actually assess and reduce risks by also implementing preventative measurements that will increase the asset life cycle of the equipment. At the end, through machine learning, we can actually improve the daily lives of all humans in the job site. I know that machine learning actually sounds like we are replacing humans and the machines are doing everything for us, but I think it's quite the opposite. Actually, we are at the end bringing the humanity on the job sites, and to ensure that our workforce is dedicated to those activities where human decisions are needed. And through machine learning, actually, not only we automate the monotonous or the repetitive tasks, we're going to see robotics as well, but we also integrate from previous examples and previous results those highlights or definitions that could allow us to get the benefits that are listed here. Now, for machine learning to work, we need to ensure that we have large sets of data. And I think this is one of the challenges in the construction industry. Our data is sometimes not very well structured, or either we don't have the data, we have the data in paper, etc. We don't have digitized data, or if we have digitized data, it's not actually well structured. We might have, for example, a customer, I don't know, name, I'm going to use you here, Lela, name Lela, with a number 101 in one platform, but in a different system is going to be Lela and maybe with a lowercase Lela and with a different number. So we know that even though the data is there, we cannot fully utilize it and we cannot fully analyze it. So for the machine learning to work, we need to also work, or we need to make sure that we have enough data elements in place so that the learning of the language of the machine can actually use data to provide better analytics. So as corporations, we need to work on integrating a data strategy. And I think it's quite important that now that we are going into the digital arena, and I assume that at least the basic core processes are already digitized, that we go into a strategy, or we put a strategy in place to ensure that we actually work and can capitalize and utilize fully the data that we have in place. So we're going to talk about data strategy and how to actually achieve a good data strategy. So that the data that we have is interconnected and is fully utilized for analytical purposes. First, we need to make sure that our data strategy actually follows the business strategy of the corporation. And this needs to be actually part of the vision of the company, needs to come from management. And it needs to make sure that, or we need to make sure that the vision of the company is around or gives importance to data, because I understand also, and from my experience, at some point, data was not seen as a value or as a valued asset. And now with the digital transformation, data becomes our gold. I mean, they becomes actually a very valuable asset that we need to enrich, and we need to ensure that the quality and reliability of our assets are in place. So it needs to come as part of the strategy, and the data strategy and the business strategy need to go match to match. This is actually a framework that we used in CEMEX, which is the company where I work for, with consultants that actually have experience on integrating these data frameworks and data to achieve the data strategy, a good data strategy. We also talk about, we need to actually work on data governance. That needs to be part of the framework, because within data governance, we need to ensure that we as people and workforce understand the importance of reliable data, and that we are responsible for data that we produced, that we're going to be taking responsibility to ensure that that data is going to be safeguarded as one asset of the corporation. So there has to be a process in place, a policy in place to actually get that into the mindset of the company culture. We actually need a data management there are different platforms that actually allow us to have data management and a data architecture in place to ensure that, again, I mean, the architecture is in place to have the data allocated, identified, and then work on structuring and interconnecting the data so that we actually utilize it and capitalize it. Part of this is basically also the data integration. I mean, as I mentioned, we might be familiarized with data being in the various different databases. So we need to actually, depending on what the strategy is, let's say we define that the strategy is going to be around customer centricity, we need to identify where in all of my assets I have customer centricity data and what's going to be my way to integrate the customer centricity data and then manage it in the future, govern it so that we actually reach the strategy. And the good news is that we have the platforms, we have the technologies to help us to do that. We have data from digitized platforms, even from social media, from or transactional systems. We have videos, etc., that we can actually integrate as unstructured data, work through these platforms to then work on the integration of the data so that we can capitalize. At the end, yeah, this is a framework that needs to be embedded into the organization to become a data-driven company. I think, again, starting with machine learning, we need to set the data analytics in place, and for that we need a data strategy in place to become a data-driven company and be able to utilize the and use the data analytics to improve the well-being in the processes of the corporation. So we're going to now go to robotics. Just check. And robotics is another technology very exciting that is definitely transforming the construction industry. On the robotics, actually, we have from industrial robotics, mechanical robots, but also process robots. And I'm going to just use very briefly on the process robots. We have the robot process automation, where, I mean, there are solutions already in the market that automate repetitions or process tasks that are repetitive. And obviously this improves the efficiency across the supply chain, across our processes, and also gives us obviously the automation of those processes, more certainty, less errors, etc. I'm going to be actually touching on the robotics, more on the industrial side as well, and how they are actually disrupting the construction industry. So we have 5 ways that the robots are at this moment are disrupting the construction industry. And it's actually, I mean, we're going to start with the robotics that can build walls. And these are just mechanical robots that can or have the capabilities to replace or to automate the wall building activities, and obviously reduce the labor requirements and the errors that are actually the errors that could happen when we're building or we're actually doing the in this case walls. We actually have the equipment that at this moment doesn't need an operator. I work actually, as I mentioned, I come from the building materials sector, and in the quarries we have traffic, just transporting material from one place to the other. Right now there are actually Caterpillar, I'm going to use some examples. I mean, it's just offering equipment where we can either operate those remotely, reducing again query or site accidents. And obviously, because they are working on robotic operations, as long as it's repetitive, the level of precision is quite high. Smart robots employ imaging technology. Again, this is for site safety purposes. I mean, we can actually have, or we do have, or the construction industry is integrating robots that are imaging or integrating imaging technology from the site to detect any deviations or to detect potential hazards at the site level that could actually, again, prevent any safety potential risks. And again, I mean, I think we talked already about operating the robotics remotely. Apologies, I think this is a duplication. And for utilizing robots for surveillance, surveying, and inspection of construction sites. Right now, these opportunities are actually quite increasing in the construction industry. And this is a graphic from Tractica. They are actually predicting that the robots revenue is going to increase to more than 200 million by 2025. And it's going to be about more than 1,400 units being shipped all about robots. So definitely, I mean, this is also a good example on technology that is being used to transform the industry, and the automation and digitization are transforming the construction industry and are actually giving or bringing innovative innovations to make the industry safer, more efficient, and to make the industry more attractive, hopefully also for young talent. So I'm going to now continue with another example for Internet of Things. And I know I think we have heard this about Internet of Things as a trend as well. The Internet of Things is precisely what we talked or what we explored before on machine learning and about robotics, etc. The Internet of Things is giving us a platform to ensure that this equipment and these data assets that we talked before are all interconnected. And giving us, obviously, ensuring that, or giving us the opportunities to synchronize from a central server and get information in real time, just to ensure that we predict and we make decisions with real-time data. So some of the Internet of Things is basically how we define it. It's a network of physical devices. It could be home appliances and other items, including software, that allow us to interconnect and actually provide us and exchange data. In the construction industry, basically what we're using Internet of Things is to ensure that we have optimal use for equipment and optimal use of the available resources to ensure that we actually do more appropriate planning and to predictive planning, for example, and we actually use our resources in a more effective and efficient manner. As I mentioned, I mean, the Internet of Things offers us a site in which materials, equipment, and workers are synchronized at a central server that governs and monitors the activities to ensure that actually the policies are followed and that the safety protocols are achieved as well, or are followed. So according to PwC, I mean, it's expected that about 98% of the industrial organizations will actually integrate IoT for predictive maintenance. And it is also predictive, I mean, within IoT that another technology that I'm sure you have heard, the augmenting reality, will be actually also boosted by about 12%. So at this moment, from my experience in construction, the construction industry or the construction companies have either tried some proof of concepts or are in the way of trying proof of concepts to ensure maybe on some critical equipment that they have some machine learning technologies and IoT so that they read and we interpret what the data is telling us. But in the future, we will definitely, and the trends are leading us there, we'll actually have IoT as a way of Internet of Things as a way of being. I think we have seen, or we might have seen, the Internet of Things working at a household's levels, where already Alexa can tell us from Amazon, I mean, how much food we're missing in our refrigerators, or that the next electricity bill needs to be paid. I mean, similar to that, this bringing into the construction industry, which we will expect that IoT or the Internet of Things connecting, integrating the equipment and our assets will actually give us very precise predictions and a better way of to manage this asset-intensive industry. So what are some of the uses for Internet of Things? Site monitoring. I mean, the construction managers can have insights not only on employees, but also on machines of potential deviations or potential risks or damages or maintenance requirements. Machine control, the sensors. I mean, actually, we have IoT sensors that can guide machines with greater precision and with minimal human involvement. Definitely construction safety, because with IoT, the construction safety can be enhanced and ensuring the safety of workers. Actually, we piloted some sensors that we included in the helmets of our construction workers to read that and to have the elements on safety measurements. It was a pilot, but it was actually quite enriching to see the type of data on that actually this pilot could create in terms of mobility, in terms of potential also ways to automate or to robotize some of the movements. Again, I mean, access to dangerous zones, etc. So I think Internet of Things can be used also for, or definitely can be used for construction safety. Fleet management, we are actually using this and along with artificial intelligence to, based on history and based on customer behavior, etc., and based on the sensors that we put in our vehicles, optimize routes and obviously maintaining the vehicles as well. So we not only pilot, actually we use this as a way to optimize our routings, reducing supply chain costs, and also giving us more preventative maintenance mechanisms for our fleet. And finally, project management, where IoT can actually help us to facilitate cost reductions by monitoring techniques on the site. So I think that's a summary of Internet of Things, and we're going to actually now integrate all what we have seen into building information modeling. Building information modeling is here to stay. Actually, it's let's say the skeleton or the heart of it will become the heart of the construction industry, because it integrates all the assets and all the stakeholders actually, and the different actors within the construction project into this framework or into this modeling. So we're going to define what BIM means, business building information modeling. And BIM means is a highly collaborative process that allows everyone in the construction project, I mean, from architects, engineers, real estate developers, etc., to be part of the design, of the planning, design, and construct a structure within the 3D model. Now, the true power of BIM actually lives in the eye, which is the information. And again, this is why the data and the information becomes very relevant to be able to enable this technology that are disrupting the construction industry. So basically, with BIM, all the information gathered from the conception of the project to the completion of the project, from the design to operative and maintenance and requirements in the middle, is actually not just stored, but it's actually actionable. We can act upon that information that we receive. Now, this is actually, I compare this with running a marathon. I mean, BIM can be achieved by going through different levels. And I compare it with running a marathon because, I don't know, I mean, to run a marathon, we have to go through a journey of training. If somebody's sitting on the couch and intends to do a marathon the next day, I think that person will really struggle. So we start with 10K, we go to 20K, and then we actually gradually develop our ability to actually run this marathon. And I compare this with BIM as well. BIM actually go by different levels that demonstrate the level of maturity. And we can actually have, for example, the designs based on paper, which is totally fine. That's a level of maturity. But if we actually migrate those to then some computer or some digitized manner, then we actually start gradually increasing the level of maturity to integrate BIM. But it's not only that, actually, it's not only integrating the designs, but also integrating the actors, as I was mentioning, throughout the project life cycle of the construction. So as I was mentioning, BIM is a structure, or we can structure it by levels of maturity. So level 0 will be a paper-based drawings and zero collaboration among the actors. Level 1 is when we achieve at least 2-dimensional construction drawings and 3D modeling. Level 2 is when we have already teamwork within the same framework and collaborating in the same platform with their own 3D models. Level 3 is where we actually shared the 3D models. So mainly the architects, the engineers, etc., are sharing the same model for the construction project. And levels 4 and 6 to 5, I'm sorry, are basically the more mature levels of BIM, where we add also project scheduling, cost, sustainability information into, in addition, obviously, to the 3D modeling, so that the actors are part of the same, share this information, and not only share, but actually are part of the building of this information and follow the scheduling and follow the cost throughout the life cycle of the project. So that is basically what BIM is giving us. And the benefits is definitely a more efficient site planning and scheduling, more efficient hands-on between steps in the construction stage, real cost visualization by all of the actors of the construction project, simplified cost analysis. Because of the designs and because everyone shares the information, reduced energy consumption in the long run, and certainly better operational management in the building of structure after the handover. 3D printing, and with 3D printing, and just because we're running a bit out of time, I'm going to actually just share a video because I think this is really exciting, and I'm not marketing any of the corporations. I think the providers of this technology work in very similar basis. But I actually like this example because it's the largest building that was printed in Dubai. And it was actually printed in 17 days, built in 3 months. And I think 3D printing with BIM can definitely give us more efficiencies in the construction cycle of projects, of buildings. There are actually roads also now printed also with this technology in Spain. But definitely, actually, this is one of the disruptors that I'm very passionate about because it not only gives efficiency, but also gives us safety. And it also is challenging or helping us to manage some of the challenges of construction, like lack of housing, for example, and lack of labor shortage in some of our markets as well. So it's not fully utilized yet. I think it's still, let's say, being in a proof of concept. It hasn't been done, or we're not doing anything at mass at this stage, but it has a lot of potential, and it's something that I was actually more industrialized for construction or advanced or progressing construction only in the last 10 to 15 years. So let me just show you. I don't know if you can hear I hope you can hear the sound. So this is a good example on how 3D printing is helping to make this, will help actually to make the construction cycle definitely a little more efficient, more sustainable. It's actually, as I mentioned, this was done in 17 days to printing, 3 months to build, up to 60% of product that was not, or that reduction on product waste. So it's definitely, I think, a very good disruptor. Not only for, and I'm not going to go through this, but actually even the NASA used 3D printing to do a challenge to build an establishment for astronauts to live in Mars. So obviously it was a prototype, but they also use 3D printing for those purposes. So it was the NASA Habitat Challenge simulating a habitat in Mars. I'm going to skip this, but it's very interesting. So if you have a chance, please take a look. So basically, the 3D printing is mainly driven by the need of sustainable and smart housing solutions. The excitement, or one of the positives, or many positives, is that it produces little waste, and basically, even the waste that can be produced as a bioproduct can be actually recycled. Helps to simplify construction models and help to tackle the housing crisis, as it could actually allow 3D printing offers lower labor cost, and construction can be done more quickly. So just to close, the revolution is certainly underway. We didn't even see some of the also trendy technologies like augmented reality and many others that were in the Deloitte slide. But I think we touch upon the ones that are trending and that are actually, I believe, disrupting the industry in very positive ways. Now, if we put a digital strategy in place, it's very important to actually have the strategy in mind and the reasons in mind. And my recommendation would be to always have the people at the heart of the digital strategy. Digital strategy or digital transformation is not about bringing technologies and that's it. It's way beyond that. Digital transformation is about changing the culture of the company, the behaviors of the employees, to actually be ready to embrace these technologies, to have a data strategy in place that allows us to use these technologies better, and that at the end, actually, that makes us more sustainable and more profitable. So with digital transformation, basically, we have evolved customers' expectations. We actually integrate new technology capabilities. We attract new generations of professionals. We actually start or bring the startup environment. And actually, because the industry is also for driving, the industry to become digital. And obviously the large infrastructure projects, as we get, and we actually have the flavors of these technologies, we know that the large infrastructure projects can be done and be conducted in a much more efficient manner. So if we wanted to, just to close, to have a roadmap, first we need to assess the maturity of the organization. It's very well recommended that we use BIM as the backbone of the new ways of working and of the digital strategy, almost as a guideline. We actually identify as part of the strategy what's going to be the efficiency levers that we're going to focus on. Again, bringing the marathon example, we need to go step by step. Very important, and as I mentioned, digital transformation is just not bringing technologies, it's actually changing the culture of the organization and embracing and integrating new ways of working, so that this needs to be a top management priority. We have to have a clear vision and journey, and we have to focus on data. And as I mentioned, I think at the beginning, we need to make sure that our digital transformation strategy has always people at heart of the organization. And with this, I will close. And I know that I took longer than planned, Lela, apologies for that, but we have a few minutes for questions.
Yes, and thank you so much. It was so well structured. And actually, there is so much that you mentioned that it's coming. It's very fascinating. It is intriguing, but still any change and the change scale of what you just mentioned is just frightening. If we look from the perspective of just operating construction companies, they are looking for the ways to find the tools to be compatible with their existing tools, existing systems, because they already paid pretty much funding and invested in the equipments which are required for them to bid on different projects. They have invested in the systems, but the technology is changing so fast that the amortization is not gone for those equipment, and the systems are almost brand new. From the other hand, they need more systems to gather the data. So without the good data collection, and as you mentioned, accurate, timely collection of the data, and then comes the data protection, still it's hard for them to make the decisions. One of the first slides that you showed, my eye was caught that the site supervision at some point is already and will be actually replaced by the drone supervision. So drone is not only the one equipment, this is the whole system which can collect different data. So in order to receive all this data, you have to analyze, do you believe that companies are ready for this dramatic and fast change?
It's actually, I mean, it's just like, I know I don't want to be gender, but it's almost like when you are pregnant and you're asked, I mean, I'm sorry, I've been pregnant and I remember the question, are you ready to have a baby, right? I think we need to become ready. It's not an option anymore. I don't know if the companies are ready, but if they are not ready, they need to become ready, because that's, I think, is the way to survive in the new era. Now, to do it, and again, I'm going to use the example of the marathon, is we need to do this step by step. And this is why the vision and the strategy and the priorities need to come from the top. And for the changes, you're right, Lela, we need to also prepare our organization for the constant change and be comfortable in an environment that is going to be changing constantly. Now, in construction, if you ask me if we're ready, I think it's more difficult. And I mentioned, I showed the shovel. I mean, the ways we have done businesses and the ways we have produced concrete and cement and the ways we have put buildings together haven't really changed in many, many years. But now with these technologies, we have an opportunity to make actually these processes a much more efficient, in a much more efficient manner, to also become more sustainable. I mean, because these are actually a more sustainable ways of conducting businesses. But we need to prepare our people. And for that, and I didn't go very in depth, but there are many ways on how to prepare people, from training, from cultural transformation that is very associated to digital, etc. But for sure, we need to become ready to embrace the change.
Actually, I've been reached lots of times by my colleagues in the construction fields, where they are looking for the skilled craftsmen and skilled supervisors. So it's hard to find skilled personnel, and it will be even harder to find the personnel who will be analyzing all this data and then processing all this data. But I guess it's coming, and at some point, if we need to survive, companies need to survive, they have to adapt as quickly as possible and try to find the ways how to be as much adaptive as possible. So this is only the way to survive for them. 1 hour has passed. I don't see any questions. If anybody has questions, please, you are welcome. Otherwise, thank you, Azeneth, so much for the presentation. It was a really big topic and it covered a lot of topics. So thank you so much for the presentation. And I would like to remind everybody that we will put recording of this video on our YouTube channel, and you can share with your colleagues and friends. And also I would like to remind you that we will be having other talks about digital transformation in commerce, in PMOs, and what is the difference between digital transformation and digitization. So stay tuned and join us for the next talks, and have a nice rest of the day, everybody. Thank you for your interest, for your continuous attendance, and see you later.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Azeneth. Have a nice rest of the day.